The deep, black ocean. I've always been both fascinated and afraid of it. Fascinated in the way that I sometimes look things up about it and its creatures on Google or YouTube. Afraid in the way that I never ever hope to be down there myself. I'm talking about the real depths here. I've snorkeled on vacation before, and I've dove before. That was no big deal. But those pitch black depths just scare me. Hell, swimming while I can't see the bottom already unnerves me. And can you really blame me? Imagine being down there. The pitch black depths where no light of the sun comes. It's just you and your diving suit, and a cable attaching you to the boat, hundreds, sometimes even thousands of meters above you. You can't see a single thing. It's all black and quiet around you. Yet there could be something huge and monstrous right behind you. Colossal squids can grow up to more than 45 feet, and are known to be able to injure even sperm whales. They live at depths of about 2.2 kilometers. Imagine one of those beasts swimming just beside you, its tentacles ready to constrict you. Yet you don't see a single thing. And who is to say there's nothing even bigger down there? Ever heard of the bloop? An extremely low-frequency underwater sound recorded by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 1997 when they were trying to locate Soviet submarines. Its true nature is unknown, as many scientists have puzzled over this, but the structure of the sound heavily imply it was made by a creature. The sound was also several times louder than the cry of a blue whale, the world's largest known animal. This means the creature itself also has to be larger than the krill-eating giant. Now imagine one of these things swimming around you. Imagine suddenly seeing rows of enormous, razor-sharp fangs appearing all around you, ready to crush you, or a huge pitch-black eye suddenly appearing before you, gazing at you with animalistic coldness, and coming to one primal conclusion: prey. People say you learn from your mistakes, right? No, not me anyways. I'm in the hospital right now. The doctors won't believe me. They're talking about sending me to a mental institute. Okay, I'm here to tell my story. It was Friday. No, it was Thursday. I was walking home from the bus stop. After I got off, I had glanced at the stop sign, but something was different. It horrified me even to look at it. Under the word "stop" was a dent. Then there was blood next to the dent. I figured it was a nasty prank that day. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. It was later that evening. I didn't have school tomorrow since snow was predicted. Actually, the ground was covered in the cold precipitation now. It was, 10 maybe? I don't know, sometime at night. Before midnight, I looked outside, to my large backyard, through the sliding glass door. The yard was open, so it looked like the houses around me all shared it. But when I saw it, I screamed. Blood. So much blood. Whatever it was that was laying next to the corpse, it was covered in blood. I started crying. I shouldn't have lifted my head up. No. It was the most horrible mistake I've ever made. The creature, the thing, pressed against the glass door, covered in the corpse's blood. This isn't one of those stories like, it had no eyes, no mouth, no face. No, it had a face all right. The eyes glowed. Green. It was horribly skinny. The smile. Oh God, the ear-to-ear smile. The teeth were sharp, and had what appeared to be an organ hanging out of its mouth. It was tall. I don't have a picture. Would you take a picture in a life or death situation? I don't think so. Where were my parents? Probably out. No time to worry about that. The glass on the door then broke in response to the pressure the creature was putting on it. Shattered. Glass got me here and there, but I was too busy running for my life. I ran quickly. Thank God the thing was slow. I reached my aunt's house in a matter of 5 minutes. I burst her door open and got in, and locked the door. Where was she? I looked in the bathroom. Her things were scattered everywhere. Her bedroom, the same thing. I looked in the fridge in the kitchen. I threw up. My mother's head. My father's head. I turned around. My aunt. She was there. The creature there also. Oh, sweetie, I didn't want it to end like this, she said, in her sweet voice. The last thing I saw was a blur of skin covered in blood, and sharp teeth at my face. Somewhere in Pas-de-Calais, France, there was a trench in the First World War, once used by the Scottish 20th Brigade. It may be filled with dirt, or perhaps a stream is running through. On a certain clear summer morning, you may hear bagpipes being played. The tune heard depends on your mood. If you're happy, you might hear a jig. If you're sad, an air or pibroch. Anger usually plays a strathspey. If you approach the direction of the sound, you may notice something sticking out of the embankment. Go ahead and dig it up. It's just an old set of bagpipes. Pick them up. Look them over. If you're feeling good, good things will come to you. Sadness and anger will give you a nice little pick-me-up. The sudden death of all your enemies. If you can play the bagpipes, wait until you hear a shrill whistle cut through the still air. Play a good, steady march. It could very well be the greatest sound ever heard by mortal ears. You will feel so good. You might never want to put them down. The dirt and mold will fall off, and the set will look good as new. You will be truly lucky should you choose to keep them. Of course, everyone does. But remember, if you haven't returned them to that trench in Calais in 1 year's time, you will join the 20th Brigade as the bagpiper until the next charge. Have you ever heard the expression, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Most assume, with no reason to think otherwise, that it is simply an easy-to-remember rhyme that stresses the importance of eating healthy foods to young children. But the saying did not originate as a harmless reminder. It was born in a frontier town in the early years of the gold rush, where food was scarce and money even scarcer. One August, when a bad drought had struck the region, a series of bloody killings swept through the town. Every night, a single house would be broken into, and anyone who saw the invader would be swiftly and brutally slain. Nothing was ever stolen, except for a few scraps of food. After 2 weeks of this, the local grocer set out a few apples and a glass of milk in the town square overnight. He then hid in the tower of the church hoping to catch a glimpse of anyone who came by. Fighting fatigue, the grocer waited for any sign of life below. Just after midnight, he was rewarded by a chilling sight. A man, carrying a black bag stuffed with dully shining metal tools and covered from head to foot in cloth bandages, staggered into view. He paused at the sight of the apples and milk, then whipped his head around, as if looking for the one who dared to patronize him. Seized with fear, the grocer ducked out of sight, staying hidden until sunrise. The strange man had only taken one of the apples, and didn't even touch the glass of milk. No houses were broken into, and no one was killed. For decades, the town continued to place out an apple or two every night, even long after a single apple stopped disappearing. It all started on the 14th night of March, the night of my parents' 20th wedding anniversary. It was a wonderful sunny day, if memory serves. Surprisingly warm for before the beginning of spring. The beautiful weather was perfect for the atmosphere of the day. Being married for 20 years is obviously a momentous occasion, so my parents had booked a table at our favorite Italian restaurant. Of course, this was a formal occasion, so I had my best suit on. It was 5:33, and I was just straightening my tie when my phone went off. I had received a message. That's strange, I thought. That never happens. I checked the message. It was from my mom. It was quite a jumble of numbers and letters, but through the vocabulary stew, I could make out one legible phrase. Please help me. It should go without saying that this worried me greatly, so I immediately replied, "Are you okay?" Just as instantly, I got another text which read, "Oops, pocket text." I sighed with all the relief I had and continued to prepare myself. A few minutes later, I received yet another message, this time from my dad. I checked the text, and once again it was a massive mixture of letters and numbers, with the phrase, "Please help me," concealed within. As creepy as this was, my dad was always a joker, so I presumed he was just joking around, until I was sent another text saying, "Oops, pocket text." Now this sparked panic. Pure, unmistakable panic. Exactly half a minute passed when I received the exact same two messages from my sister. This could not be coincidental. It just couldn't. In a state of sheer anxiety, I started to run to the restaurant. I made it about a quarter of the way before I was stopped by a police officer. "Main road's closed," he said. "Huge car crash." This was the exact moment I realized what had happened. I demanded to see the wreckage, a request which I was surprised was allowed. When I got there, it wasn't the remnants of the car that caught my eye, nor the flames billowing from the destroyed vehicle. No. I was horrified to see the lifeless corpses of my mother, father, and sister. I asked for the estimated time of their deaths. All three of them were killed instantly by the collision at 5:32, a minute before the very first text. There was nothing particularly remarkable about the sentence she had just come to. The, at one point exciting novel had lapsed into dullness. Merely the red spot above the word "ghost" commanded attention. She couldn't think what it was, or how it had been made on a page she had only seconds ago opened to in a book she had purchased new. She scratched it with her fingernail, and the circular spot quickly became a line along the pattern of her nail's movement, permeating the inside of the O. This indicated that the spot was liquid in nature and fresh in origin. Then another spot caught her eye, between the words such and as in the next sentence. It was much bigger than the first spot, and she was sure it had not been there a few seconds ago. She sat in awe, watching the redness seep into the paper and blot out the printed words, unsure of what to make of this. The third spot had clearly dropped from above. Afraid there were drops of blood from an unnoticed wound, she touched her hand to her cheek to feel if she was bleeding. To her horror, half of her hand came back covered in a red, semi-congealed blood. She dropped her book and raced to the bathroom. The entire right side of the frightened face in the mirror was a bloody mess. She pressed a towel against her face to clear away the blood and locate the wound from which it had somehow issued without her awareness. She was quickly shaken when she found that her face had been cut up like a jigsaw puzzle. Deep wounds, looking to be from a razor blade, formed a triangle below her right eye, and a series of linear cuts radiated from each apex like the branches of a tree, extending to her chin, her ear, and the bridge of her nose. The flesh around the triangle was darkened and pulled away from the cuts, as if it had been burned to cauterize it, but blood seeped from the other cuts immediately, covering the patterns with growing pools of crimson. She had absolutely no idea how something like that could have happened, since she had spent the last 30 or 40 minutes reading alone. Adding to the oddness, her face looked as though she had been crying, and her hair was a mess. But those were merely unsettling side notes. New tears filled her eyes. She had to do something. She had been attacked and needed medical attention. She rushed to the phone, preparing to call 911. But after picking up the receiver, she thought about the situation. What would she say? That she had just started bleeding spontaneously a few seconds ago, and now suddenly looked like she's been thoroughly sliced up with a box cutter? They would think she was psychotic and had done it to herself. She put down the receiver and took notice of the digital clock by the phone. It read 8:31. She had looked at that same clock 10 minutes before, perhaps 15, and it was 4:17. A quick glance at the window confirmed the new reading. It was dark out, and the stars were visible. She could not comprehend what was happening, but knew she had to do something. She could feel the blood streaming down her neck, soaking into her blouse. She was not in a state of mind to think of options that weren't likely to end with her being sent to the psychiatric ward. Her sister. She could call her, and she would take her seriously and know what to do. Unfortunately, she had not memorized her new number. She ran over to get her cell phone, which had it stored in its memory, but tripped over something. There was a plastic box full of photographs lying in the middle of the room. It shouldn't have been there, nor should the other boxes from the shelves, which had opened and emptied all over the floor. Someone had been going through her things. She looked around at a room rearranged without her noticing, and her vision grew hazy. Her last thoughts were of reaching the cell phone in her purse as she lapsed into unconsciousness from a combination of hysteria and blood loss. In January 2006, in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. On more than one occasion, that man has given her advice on her private life. The woman swears she has never met the man in her life. That portrait lies forgotten on the psychiatrist's desk for a few days, until one day, another patient recognizes that face and says that the man has often visited him in his dreams. He also claims he has never seen that man in his waking life. The psychiatrist decides to send the portrait to some of his colleagues that have patients with recurrent dreams. Within a few months, 4 patients recognized the man as a frequent presence in their own dreams. All the patients refer to him as this man. From January 2006 until today, at least 2,000 people claimed they have seen this man in their dreams. In many cities all over the world: Los Angeles, Berlin, Sao Paulo, Tehran, Beijing, Rome, Barcelona, Stockholm, Paris, New Delhi, Moscow, etc. At the moment, there is no certain relation or common trait among the people that have dreamed of seeing this man. Moreover, no living man has ever been recognized as resembling the man of the portrait by the people who have seen this man in their dreams. Thank you all so much for listening to this new collection of Micropastas. I'm going to try and keep this series going. I'm sorry that it's been delayed for quite some time. I just had to make way for so much other content that I couldn't find the time to do this. So I thank you all for your patience, and I hope you all have a nightmare-filled night.